Welcome to a Let's Talk Parkinson's event from PCLA, featuring Care Partners. I'm Judy Yaris. I'm Vice President of PCLA. If you don't know us, PCLA is a Los Angeles-based nonprofit that provides support for families living with Parkinson's. I'd like to thank our sponsors of Let's Talk, Abbott, AbbVie, Boston Scientific, and Medtronic. Our programs are also made possible by donations. If you appreciate free programs like this one, please consider making a donation on our website at pcla.org. So before we get started, we have a few rules for tonight. We're recording tonight's event. Your image will not be visible in the video, but we ask that you please stay muted. If you have questions or comments or want to share, type them into the chat. If you're not quite sure how to do that, we can assist you with it. You can also raise your hand to join our conversation after the speakers. So let's get along, and please join me in welcoming this evening's panel, representing a range of caregiving experiences, and they are wonderful care partners. Edna Ball has had Parkinson's in her life for 61 years. She is a care partner to her husband, John, who has had PD for 50 years. Yes, you heard that number, 50 years. And was also a caregiver to her late mother, who lived with PD for 37 years. Cindy Ellis Robinson is a care partner to her husband, Matt, who was diagnosed with PD in January of 2015. Cindy and Matt were married in December 2016. Stephen Rubin, who I probably will refer to as Steve, was a care partner to his wife, Barbara, who was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2008. Barbara was a founding member of the PCLA board and an active Parkinson's advocate up until she passed away in January 2021. Steve is one of our PCLA board members. I'm honored to moderate this discussion tonight, and I'll also talk a little bit about my own caregiving journey. I was a care partner for my husband, Sandy, who lived with Parkinson's for 18 years. So to start, I'd love to have each of you share just a brief background on your Parkinson's caregiving story. I don't mind who would start. So maybe let's start with Edna, who really represents our care partners. Edna?
Thank you. I was born and raised in Montreal, Canada. And when I was 11 years old, my mother was diagnosed with Parkinson's. And at that time, it was 1961, there was no medication. So she had nothing, and as I said, she lived with it for 37 years. And then in 1973, I married my wonderful husband, John. He started having symptoms at 27. There wasn't the term young onset then, it took 12 years to get a diagnosis because nobody knew what it was. So he's 77 now, so he has had Parkinson's for 50 years. So for my mom, since I was 11 when she was diagnosed, still a child, so most of my caregiving obviously was just helping my dad, just around the house and that kind of thing. And with John, as we all know, everybody's Parkinson's is different. So I've been very, very fortunate that John's a bit of an outlier with his Parkinson's, and he hasn't needed a whole lot of caregiving, but he has needed a lot of care partnering. And I prefer the term care partner because it really is a partnership, this relationship we have as we go on this journey.
Yes, thank you, Edna. Absolutely. Cindy, would you like to give us a little brief background?
Yeah, mine is pretty short and sweet as far as Parkinson's. I've never really had a lot of experience around anyone with Parkinson's until I met Matt. And I say that, but now that I know Matt and I've watched his progression, I know now that my father had it for many years before he passed away in 2019. And when he was diagnosed, a year or two before his death, no one believed it. And Matt and I both said, oh yes, he definitely has it. So every day is a learning experience for me. And I like, Edna, what you say about the care partnering, because I mean, there are times he needs, I mean, he needs care, he needs help, but it's more of a partnering relationship, and just to be available, to be there for him, to be the calm in his life, and to meet every need every day as it arises, because we never know what every day is going to bring. So I learn a lot from Judy and other people in our group. Don't know what I would do without our support group. And that's all. It's just, like I say, one day at a time.
Great. Thank you, Cindy. And Steve, how about you? Would you like to give us a little background?
Well, as you said, my wife Barbara passed away last year at the height of COVID, and at a time, January of 2021, when it was a mystery. The vaccines were being talked about but weren't available, and it was a terror to take care of her in that environment, because it was so constricting in terms of the help we could receive, the threat coming in from outside. Some of you may remember vividly washing the mail or vegetables or whatever for fear that they would carry COVID. Barbara showed symptoms of Parkinson's in 2002. At that time, we thought it was Parkinson's, but she couldn't get a conclusive diagnosis until 2008, as Judy said, from the Mayo Clinic. We made it a partnership. It was a joint enterprise from the day one that she was diagnosed. We went around the country. We got top people. There were counter indications to Parkinson's. But as we traveled together and looked into it together, what was a strong marriage became that much more powerful. The end game of this, the last 2 years, when Barbara started to decline, not directly from Parkinson's, and this is the usual story, not directly from Parkinson's. In her case, it was from respiratory failure. I came in as what would be conventionally called a caregiver. Before then, she was capable of managing her activities. And that was good, because I have no talents as a caregiver. I don't cook, I don't clean, I don't know schedules, I don't do anything of that sort. I had to practice, and that's what I was doing. But necessity brought me into it. And in preparation for tonight, I wrote a list, as lawyers do, of what went right and what went wrong. And that was a good practice for the questions Judy has for us. A fair amount went wrong, and maybe you can learn from my novice mistakes. But in the end, a lot went right, and my conscience is clear after the event. And I think that I would tell all of you now in a caregiver role that the clear conscience is the greatest gift that you could have at the end of caregiving.
Absolutely. Thank you, Stephen. You know, as caregivers, it can be hard to find time for ourselves. I certainly know that the stress and anxiety can be so overwhelming at times. And it's easy. I remember a lot of people saying to me, take care of yourself. But, you know, how do you do that? It's so hard to do. And I'm wondering if any of you have any tips for dealing with what we call the stress of caregiving, you know, and we know that it exists. Even when your partner is doing well, there seems to be some stress. I think for myself, I always felt there might be another shoe that might fall when things were going too good. So who would like to, let's kind of open this up. Edna, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, so I think one of the most important things is to talk things out before anything happens. So, you know, if I'm stressed because John's dyskinesia is too noisy, and I'm very noise sensitive, you know, I'm really, it's pathetic. I'm like the princess and the pea. I'm just really noise sensitive. So he knows it's okay if I leave the room and close the door. that's okay. That's not going to offend him. Like we've talked about these things. If I go out onto the patio and lay in the hammock with my headphones on and listen to the music that I want to listen to, that's okay. So it's just important to talk things out ahead. I think communication is just so important. The other thing that I think is important too is when we talk to our fellow care partners who are going through the same thing, we often call and people will say, "Oh, how's John?" and all, and you know, but you need to ask, "How are you?" to the person who is doing the caregiving. And this happened once. I called a friend and I asked, "How are you?" And it just sort of stopped her in her tracks, because it was like, you're asking about me, you know, and we need to do that for each other. Just super, super important. And that in itself relieves some stress, because you can then vent, talk, cry, whatever you need.
That's so important. Steve, would you like to address this a little bit? I know you have your what was good and what wasn't, but there might be some advice or some tips in here.
Well, stress was definitely what went wrong. And it went wrong because I found I was in denial. And this is obviously an after the event analysis. I didn't know I was denying I was in denial at the time I was in denial. And that lessened the stress in a way artificially, but it led into some other problems, one of which is my own health and my ability to care for my wife. And what went right in terms of stress, there was also the fact in stress that Barbara and I were more or less alone in the early advent of the real coming together of the care partnership in Los Angeles, where we had moved from where we had lived for many, many years with friends and everything else. We moved out here to be near our kids and to have that support. And as it turned out, that was life-saving, I think, to Barbara. And the stress and the denial was just building for the two of us in this big house with no one blowing the whistle on it, until my son, who is viewing, and my son-in-law started visiting and saw what was going on. And to say how severe the stress was, they moved in full time to relieve me. And one of the things that gave me is a perspective of what I was doing, which was not sleeping for 24 hours a day because of Barbara's conditions. And they took over that. That also gave me the opportunity to reflect, which I wasn't doing before. It was all what's happening, how you feel, your pills are coming up, why are you coughing, and all these, and then the machines that we had. And by taking over the daytime responsibilities in large measure, I was able to start walking and by myself, and that cleared my head. It was not only the exercise, but it was talking to myself while I was walking. And that was a huge stress reliever. I could feel the knots, the iron chains loosen when I did a walk and then came back from that and saw that she was taken care of. That's what I said it when we began before this program, that mine is an individual experience as everyone's is, but I'm going to give you the individual experience without insight and take from it what you will, because I don't know how it works for each individual and each individual's case, but that was my stress.
Right. And I think, Steve, that's what makes this sort of interesting to me, is that each one of you have had very different experiences with your partner's Parkinson's. And so the point of view becomes quite different. Cindy, I know that you do a lot. I've known you for a while now, and that you do a lot to look at anxiety and stress. We've talked about some things about this.
Yes, and I always think I'm handling it really well. And just yesterday we had an incident where Matt, and I know that for the past 8 or 9 days, I've been just harboring a lot of new stress. And I always think I'm doing really well with it. And he's so sensitive to it. And his thing is he will come to me and say, "Are you mad at me?" Or did I say something, or are you going to leave? And it's just a lot of things all piled up at once. And the way I deal with it is, up to now, I'm fortunate, that I can have the time. Like Steve, I find meditative things are the best for me, whether that's walking, meditating, yoga, any sort of physical exercise. Without that, I would go crazy. I have a group I used to work out with. We no longer live in LA. We moved to Palm Springs for quarantine time. We've been here 2 years. I was afraid I would miss all my support from friends and all, but thanks to Zoom, I've got that. And I can still be with my friends Tuesday and Thursday mornings and our mean trainer for workout, and makes the rest of the week go well. But it is true. Things do pile up, and I think I'm handling it well. So I'm glad he does point out when I'm not, and it just opens my eyes. A lot of my stress lately has been with the pharmacy. All of a sudden they've lost their minds and they're not doing anything right. So, I've had to take 3 steps back and just, try not to go in there every day and yell at anyone. But, it's just, you really do have to take a breath with each day, with each moment, with each experience. And every day is different. Matt is having a lot of progression, I'd say, in the last 3 or 4 months, both cognitively and physically. So watching this happen and helping him deal with it without showing my distress, it's a little tough. But he's such a good soldier, how can I be upset? So I just try to help him through his experiences every day. I just take it, like I say, a day at a time, because we have great days and we have not so good days. But they're always good days because we're still here and we're together.
Right.
Now we're considering a move, even further. My family's in Texas, and I got a lot of family, and everybody takes care of each other. So this is something we're looking at and seriously considering, at least for a while.
That's exciting.
Yeah, but Parkinson's.
And scary.
It's very scary.
Yeah.
And especially for someone with Parkinson's, that change is not the greatest experience for them, and new experiences, so we're warming him up to it, and I won't do anything that's going to pull the rug out from under him. We're just looking at our options, but you definitely have to take care of yourself. You have to prioritize, even if it's an hour a day, or, as Anna said, just put your headphones on and step outside, and he's very aware of that need. So I never feel like I'm shortchanging him or taking away from his care, but this is what I choose to do with my life right now. So I'm 100% committed, and my children are grown, my work is done, and I'm in love with this man. So I'm going to take care of him. Yeah.
Edna, it looked like you wanted to say something.
One of my favorite sayings, and I've printed it out and given it to friends, and it's in their cupboards, is every day may not be good, but there is something good in every day.
Exactly.
So the trick is to be open enough to recognize and see and notice and find that, even if it's one good thing, whether it's the smell of orange blossoms right now on all the trees that are blossoming, or a bird, or whatever it happens to be, you have to allow yourself to recognize and find that one good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's really important. And Cindy, you were saying you sort of take it one day at a time. I think that there were points when at different times, and not necessarily when Sandy was really not doing well, but sometimes when he was doing well, that I had to take it 1 minute at a time or 1 hour at a time.
That's really what I meant.
Yeah, just to feel sane with it. And to feel like it's going to be okay, because with Parkinson's, the one thing we know is that it changes. It changes sometimes hourly. You know, they can wake up or have a bad morning, but be great in the afternoon, or have a great morning and kind of lose it by the afternoon or evening. So I think it's this idea of being flexible and thinking about a moment for yourself, whether it's taking 5 deep breaths, just going outside for a minute and looking at a bird or looking at a tree, hug a tree, you know, whatever works for you. It can be very beneficial. It can really help you.
It really can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
My anxiety is only going to spill over onto him, and it's a very anxious disease. If I had it, I think I'd be frightened most of the time. It'd be hard not to be frightened. So I have to just really stay calm, and
that's really good.
Mhm.
You know, Cindy, you mentioned support groups, and you've talked a lot about support. And both Edna and I have both been running and have participated in groups over the years. What are some of the things that you've found that have really helped to build your PD support network? And Steve, I'm going to kind of put that out to you first, because you
Okay.
came into a strange city and you didn't have your friends here. How did you manage that? What worked for you and Barbara? Because I know Barbara was involved in many different things.
Well, it started with our children who were here. And shortly before we arrived, Barbara's diagnosis of Parkinson's was made. So we knew more specifically what we were up against. And we went to some of the movement doctors in the Los Angeles area. And Los Angeles is known for the quality of its Parkinson's care. That was a magnet to come out here. And through them, we met some people, and then PCLA was being formed. There were some other organizations, but PCLA, it was Barbara who got through some contacts to know PCLA. We talked to Patrick Lasasso, who is now the president. We did some things at the start, and she was asked to join the board, which was wonderful for her. It gave her a mission. And the board meets once a month. And the board itself is a fountain of information of what's going on in the community and breakthroughs and things of that sort. And PCLA then was putting together the support groups. And that was an immeasurable benefit to her, because I had my business, but she had her Parkinson's, basically.
Yeah.
And having support groups, meeting particularly other women of her age, of her condition, with things to talk about, grandmas, that sort of thing, really benefited her. And as you know, leading these groups, some of the things that are discussed is what works for you or what's not working for you. So she picked up a lot of commonsensical, non-medical insights from the group, but she made a lot of friends, and that was really important to her, all of which blew up with COVID. And it was a while before PCLA was able to recreate the Zoom experience. And by then she was sort of too weak to really participate. And as a board member, I don't want to diminish in any way PCLA's efforts with the support groups, but I think everyone realizes that we cannot get back too soon to in-person contacts among members of the support groups. That touching, the hugging, all of that was vital to her well-being when that was going on.
Right. It was so hard for everyone. Edna, do you want to add anything here?
I just, because John is in still pretty good shape, we travel to conferences. We've been to the Parkinson's Congress. The next one's in Barcelona, and we're keeping our fingers crossed. 2023, it got postponed by a couple of years. Zoom meetings, local conferences, online seminars, is it PMDA, there's so many organizations and things that they're, especially now with Zoom, they're out there and you can access so much more. And then just, just talking to friends in the same boat. Like we like to say, the boat may be sinking, but we're all in it together. Let's bail. And yeah, I also think it's important. We have a very strong network of friends who don't have Parkinson's. But it's kind of important to bring them in and educate them so they know what their friends are dealing with. We have wonderful neighbors and friends who do that. John has running buddies who they don't have Parkinson's. They've been with him for 20 years now. They will drive all the way from the beach communities to Whittier here in the inland and make sure that John gets out. Can Johnny come out to play kind of thing and let go for a little jog or slog or whatever he calls it, a little shuffle. But it's good to let other people in and let them understand what you're going through.
I think that's some great advice, Edna, because I think for many of us, when you go into that care partner role, we always feel like no one is going to understand. My friends, you can always say, oh, my friends won't understand because they're not in this position. But they may not understand exactly what you're going through. But if they're your friend, they may want to find some way of offering support for you.
Absolutely.
And so what this kind of brings up to me is, how do we ask for support? Is this something that we do? Or in Stephen's case, you said that, your sons decided to move in with you. So how do you ask for support from other people? Or don't you? Do you, don't you? Anyone can kind of open up on that one.
Well, since you mentioned me, this was one of my don'ts. Don't refuse help. Don't get isolated and dig in. So it's just the two of you, in my case, my wife and myself, but the Parkinson's person with Parkinson's and the caregiver against the world, so to speak. And I don't know what would have happened. I don't have a script for this. If my son hadn't paid us visits and just saw what was going on with the two of us, as I said, the anxiety was dealt with denial in some respects. I reached out to the kids, but it was COVID again. I can't emphasize what disruption COVID was to the normal caregiving process with someone whose loved one has what they call comorbidity, which sounds horrible, but essentially was on the edge with particularly the symptoms that COVID brought, the respiratory symptoms, and not knowing anything about it really, not having any vaccines, or the masking was mysterious, all of that stuff. So we were isolated and I didn't ask, and that was what went wrong. And if my son, both sons saw what was going on, but if my son Canaan had not pitched in and then saw the two of us floundering, I guess, I don't know what we would have done. So I didn't ask, and that's a mark against me, but I was truly benefited by my son and his seeing through that. And I guess what went right is once he came into the picture changed radically. It wasn't one desperate caregiver thinking he couldn't be overwhelmed, having huge self-confidence, wrongly placed, to three people who could take care of a 24-hour day, could cook, could do chores, could do errands, and all that. It was a night and day experience. So getting help was vital, absolutely vital.
Right.
Very fortunate to have that. I know what you mean about the isolation too, and especially because of COVID. It was also one of the reasons we chose to come in quarantine in Palm Springs, just to we were so unsure of everything, and I didn't want people coming around him as much as maybe we did in the past. Matt's got a big fan base, and it just, it was frightening for him, not knowing and being afraid of getting anything, anything he gets or Parkinson's patient gets is fourfold, if it's a cold, if it's, his asthma, whatever. So that's, you're very fortunate to have one of your children step in like that, or all of them. Yeah, and it is time. I had the safety bubble of Zoom, and we don't dislike the Zoom meetings. Matt's like, I didn't have to get up and drive across town to a meeting tonight and worry about us being on time and going home, and but to be lazy and stay on the couch. But those days are going to end, and wherever we are, if we're back in LA, if we're here, if we're in Texas, I'm going to have to reach out, especially if we make a move. I am going to have to reach out and find some more new support. But I know I've got Judy and our group. We started going to the support group for Matt, and I sort of feel like it's mine now. I mean, we both get so much out of it, and I don't know what I would have done if we hadn't started going to those meetings. I found when he first was diagnosed, I just felt lost. I didn't know what to do. And I went online, like, what can he do? I knew that exercise was a good thing. So I typed in, exercise for Parkinson's in my area, and came up with this boxing class. And so he went to his first one, and he came home saying, I have a new friend named Mike. I call him Big Mike, Mike Weinman. And he learned through Mike about a support group. And, I'm like, support group, so, but we went, and we were just hooked. And it was as much frightening as it was eye-opening, because you see people at all stages. And we know Mike, who was diagnosed at a young age. Matt was in his mid-50s, but to see his journey and everyone's journey and what could happen or what may never happen, it's good to be prepared to see all the possibilities and to hear what you can do about it. I learn solutions mostly when I go, and he gets to talk to his friends that can relate to how he feels about how he's feeling and what they can do about it. So it's just been a marvelous experience. I don't know what I would do without.
Yeah, I didn't mean to diminish that.
Oh, no, I understand.
Barbara developed some strong personal friendships. And if you have those friendships and then go on Zoom, you can continue them. But to establish them at the outset is difficult. So I'm hoping, as we all, that we can restore the support groups we had.
Yeah, see, I didn't come here and meet anyone new, so I know what you mean. It's like the safety of my group I've already got, but
Right.
we're gonna have to spread. I'm gonna have to open up and let other people in very soon. So.
What comes to mind also, all three of you have had the experience of living with your partner. But as I'm hearing this, I'm thinking we may have some care partners that are not in the same city. It could be a sister, a brother, a child, and they also are care partners, but they are doing it sort of long distance. And I just want to address one little thing about, and it's really not a little thing, it's a big thing. If you cannot be there, bringing in someone from outside to be a caregiver or a care partner for the person with Parkinson's. And it's not an easy road to do that. Mm-hmm. Generally, the person with Parkinson's does not want outside help. They're not interested in it, and they're very uncomfortable with it. But I have found I had one little tool that helped me a lot. And I just said, it's not really for you. You're doing this because it's for me. It's so I can go to work and I can feel confident that when I'm gone, you have some needs that are being met. And I think it's really important to kind of look at that. So for those of you that maybe are long distance, don't be afraid to bring someone in. That's a whole other topic that we can get into. I see that we have some great questions and comments, and my darling friend Nessa Wyman, who was supposed to be the moderator tonight, has her hand up. And Nessa, I'd love to have you unmute and make a comment. We're so glad that you're here. She had a procedure last week and didn't know if she was going to be able to do this.
Hi,
So
Nessa.
please chime in. I'm sure everyone would love to see you.
Mhm.
I just wanted to pop in a little bit about the asking for help, because I didn't used to ask for help. Now I do. And for example, I had back surgery a few days ago, and I had people lined up even just for visits, because it's hard for Mike, who has Parkinson's, to manage everything. So I tried to set up in advance at like 3 things. And I think what's good about it is that it gives somebody else who loves you an opportunity to show you how much they love you by helping you. For example, Judy Yaris. She made me eggplant parmesan. She won't make it for everybody, but she's really special.
Remember that.
And homemade granola, and just what did I need? What my body needs to sustain me. And but when you ask people for help, you know what they do? They want to give you their very best. They're not going to bring you what they make when they don't have any time. They're going to plan in advance. And then it shows you how much they love you and how much they care for you, and that people want to do something. They don't know what to do, but if you tell them what to do, they'll do it. Okay. That's what
Human nature makes us not ask for help. What is that with us?
I think it's a defect that we have a character defect of people that take that caregiving role.
People do love to help. But Matt recently, he wanted to go to Costa Rica, and let's go. And oh, my daughter has never been. I want to show her where I used to live. And I finally thought, why don't you just go with her? And he was a little frightened about it at first, like, you mean you're not going? And I just had a talk with her. I said, here's what to expect. I really need you to step up, and, this might happen, that might happen. Be sure he does this at these times. And boy, she was a soldier. She was on it. And she just took so much pride in that. And she said she has so much confidence now. And it grew her up a few years too, because she saw behavior in him that she couldn't become the little girl anymore and whine and complain about. She had to step up and care for him. And people really do love to help. And Nessa's right. Nessa's probably the one that has taught me the most, and Judy, about ask for help.
Well, Nessa taught me too. So we hope this is where I think this idea of community comes together, because we help each other. And that's what we have to do. And we're going to talk more about that at the end, because I have some exciting news for all of you. I want to make a couple comments here from our chat. I think it would be good to kind of take a look at this from Lori. She's saying, my husband is still very functional, but there's so much I can relate to in each person sharing. The hardest area is cognitive decline. No kidding on this. That's my comment. Okay. My husband has relied on his strong intellect all these years. Recognizing this growing deficits, multitasking memory, and judgment in some areas is painful for him. And then it's a struggle to rely on me. How have you all handled this? I'm typically honest with him about what I see, and we deal with it together, but it could be increasingly hard. I think this is a really important area of cognitive decline for those of you that have experienced that.
I think that's a 3-month-old or new thing with me as well. So I think we're in the same place, she and I. Where functionally, he's doing pretty well, but there are changes. And when the sad day is when they notice, I noticed them before he did. And I just try to quietly correct things, or, no, this is this way. And here you forgot this. There are some days when he's very visibly upset about it, and he will just fall apart. And that breaks my heart, but I just have to give him the pep talk, baby, we're doing the best we can. You're doing amazing. You can do this. You're still doing this. And you know what? Tomorrow you may not feel this way anymore, or this afternoon. And, it is a tough one. That is tough.
Yeah, I think it's very hard with cognitive decline. Edna, I don't know. I know that John's had it for 50 years, but I haven't heard you. I don't know that he's had any of that. Does he show any signs of it, of executive
No,
function?
no, I'm the one that shows signs of it.
Okay. So he'll be taking care of
And
you.
believe me, it's scary because my mom had dementia, Parkinson's dementia, and
Uh-huh.
my dad had dementia, and my aunt and my uncle had dementia. So believe me, it worries me a lot. But John is still amazing. He has an amazing memory. He reads, he writes. Yeah, I have not had to deal with it, but I've had friends who have had to deal with it with their partners, and it is tough, and it's hard, and it's sad, and boy, yeah, I don't know. I don't really have the answers, except I know it takes a world of patience. In general, Parkinson's takes a world of patience.
Yes. I think
And
the
I know
key
with my
word-
mom who had dementia, it was my dad was the primary caregiver, and it took its toll on him big time. They were from the old country, so they was like, no one's going to help. And finally, he had to get help. But with my mom, it was just a question of, agreeing with her. There's no point correcting. There's no point arguing. There's no point, it can't be helped. And so it takes patience. My mom once said, I want to go over there. I need to stir the soup. And it was like some corner of the living room, and I said, but Mom, there's no soup there. And she said, yeah, I have to stir the soup. So I got her up, I lifted her up. She was heavy, plopped her in her wheelchair. We went over to that side of the room, and I said to her, what if when we get there, there's no soup? And she said, then I'll tell you I'm sorry. What can you do? You gotta love it, right?
Right,
So
right.
it just, yeah, it takes a lot of patience. The scary part is when it progresses into something a little more than just like Alzheimer's or something, and then behaviors really change. But that's a whole other ballpark.
Yes.
Yeah.
We use humor a lot too.
Yes, absolutely.
And that has really helped. Like,
Yeah.
right immediately, the first year of his diagnosis, he started having trouble parking his car,
Mhm.
whether it's parallel or just straight into a parking place. So we call it Parkinson's,
Yeah.
and I'm like, nobody else here's parked like that, huh? So, and we just laugh at everything, and he's funny anyway. But
Yeah, humor and patience are very important.
Humor and patience, I
on
think.
the
are the
patience.
key parts.
Yeah.
Steve, do you have anything you want to add on this one?
I think this was another insight of Kanan and Luke. Barbara had several hospitalizations in the last 6 months of her life. And the second, they were pneumonias. And the second one, she had to go on a ventilator. And that, when she came off that, she had the dementia that's often reported from the force of the ventilator. And when she came home, it was obvious that it was like a light switch between her sharp mind and her fuzzy recollections. And what my son did is pull out 50 some odd years of family photographs.
Yeah.
And we still have vinyl records from when we got married, before we got married, and into it sounds now the dark ages, but the 70s and 80s. So he played the music, the memories of the music, and that conjured conversations about what we were doing when we were doing it. And the photographs were actually for Kanan as well. He was in a lot of them as a 3-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 10-year-old. So and Barbara chimed in, it stimulated her. What we were doing when we were doing it, what was going on. That made a big difference during her days. I think the days went faster for her when she had something that wasn't challenging, but produced a recollection that was a happy memory. And she responded to that.
That's a great suggestion. Kathy, do you want to chime in on this right now? You can unmute yourself.
One,
Yeah, can you hear me?
yeah, can you
Yes.
hear me?
I know
Oh, I have a different.
I may not remember faces or names with the face, but the words somehow always come back to the song once you hear the music.
Mhm.
You know, even the oldies, it's like, how did I remember those words? I was probably only 5 when they sang that song.
Right. That's right. Kathy Stark, did you want to say something?
Yeah, sorry, I started talking at the same time thinking you were talking to me. Yeah, when you talk about, people getting, support, luckily I do have a lot of support. My husband Dick has had Parkinson's for about 16 years now, and we got married after he had Parkinson's, and knowing there was things to come, but he's progressed pretty slowly until recently. And I did something that I was so grateful that he was willing to do. I reached out to get some support outside of the home for like maybe 2 or 3 times a week, 3 times a week. Somebody highly recommended a woman who's a licensed clinical social worker who finds somebody for you. And so you're not getting total strangers in there. She does all the vetting. She does all the, interviewing, so that by the time you interview 2 or 3 people, you know that they're coming from a good source. And when I talked to her on the phone about Dick, she said, asking me some questions. I said, he doesn't know yet that I've even made this contact with you.
Hmm.
So I then told him, and he was open to it and said, I'm willing to give it a try. So it hasn't started yet. We had some out of towners here for the last couple of weeks who were kept different. Things really kind of, I guess we got to a place where the cognitive part that we're all talking about right now really hit a peak. It never had happened before. We had like 3 different cases within a couple of weeks of, like kind of hallucinations, delusion things that he had no clue they were not real. And they were pretty scary. And the scariest part was that he didn't know they weren't real. And he insisted they were. And I, of course, couldn't convince him otherwise, nor would I try to. But, I just reassured him. So looks like maybe in this coming month, we're going to start having some help for me so that I can do some of the things with friends to get me out of the house, to take care of myself as well, and feel like he's going to be taken care of and not be alone. I
That's
really
great.
do not like the idea of him being alone all day if I'm going to go on an outing with my friends.
And
That's
you'll be
really
better. You'll be a
wonderful.
better care partner for
Right,
that.
right. And
Absolutely. We have some amazing comments here, and it's really good. I'm going to try to get to all of them, but we have one from Michael saying, interesting to me is that you all seem to be able to work with your PWP, person with Parkinson's, if you don't know what that stands for. My wife came home and told me she was diagnosed and that we were going to look at the good, and that was all. That is the way it has been for her ever since until lately. I have had to do all the heavy lifting for the last 17 years. Side effects from the agonist and amantadine really affected her cognitively. She will let me when we go to the neurologist now, at least. It sounds like she will let me talk when we go to the neurologist now, at least. So, Michael, this is a really hard one because you need to be involved on one level, but you have to do it within the confines of what your partner is going to allow you to do. And I think all of the suggestions of humor and patience and trying to be understanding with this, but it does put a price on your head. It is difficult for you when you have that. And I would like to suggest to everyone that you make sure that you have a good team behind you, that you have speech pathologists they work on cognitive areas for you, that you have a team of therapeutic services, that people that can work with you, from OTs to speech pathologists to physical therapists to your neurologist, and really have this all together, because that's going to make it easier for you as you're able to reach out. I think that we really look at our time together And we have to be able to give of ourselves, but also allow others to come into the mix. And that's really important.
Mhm.
And I hope that that sort of addressed it. I think, Michael, it's difficult when you aren't in the door, when you can't be the one to really guide it. You have to just take your time and just wait. And hopefully that will come. Any comments on that, on Michael's comment from either any of the panel? No? Okay.
We were having that issue, and then I think it was through one of our support group meetings that Judy and Nessa said to Matt, you have to let her help you. Because there were things, even if it's going to the neurologist and talking and he'll ask a question and I'll know the answer even if Matt can't remember or won't hit on what the real concerns are. And he used to get a little short with me of that, well, just back off, and now he's really opened up and he's letting me take over more. So
That's good.
that's good advice to give
Yeah,
them
isn't
to
it?
Yeah.
the
I just
therapies
wanna
help.
say, so I'm sorry, are you done, Cindy?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think we walk a fine line between how much we do and how much we shouldn't do. I think, we know Parkinson's sadly is a disease of loss. You lose a little bit of this, a little bit of that, whether it's motor or cognitive or whatever. But I think it's really, really important to not take away anything before it's time.
Mhm.
The person with Parkinson's needs to be able to do what they can do for as long as they can do it, as long as they're safe. And I just think it's, sometimes we tend to or want to, lose patience, talk for them, act for them, do this faster, do that faster. We have to wait, we have to be patient, and we don't want to take away any of their abilities before they actually do lose them. It's just so important. And it's good for their self-esteem to be able to keep doing what they can do.
Mhm.
I think that's absolutely true. As a care partner, I've always been a type A, so I can do it faster
Right,
and,
of course.
and get it done. And I want everything done the way I want it done. But,
Right.
being able to this is where that breathing comes into place, deep breaths, 5 deep breaths, slow it down and allow them to do it their way. And it may not be the way you would do it. And they may not say it the way you would say it, but I think giving them that space, Edna, is so important, to allow your person with Parkinson's to have that ability to be empowered. I think that's really what it comes from. We had someone that mentioned in the chats about resentment that I'm trying to find that again, if I can find it. Okay. How do you deal with resentment when friends fade away and stop reaching out? Very few of the people who we were close to Frank have showed up. I feel restful and unhappy about that, resentful and unhappy about that. I'm the kind of person who keeps in touch and reaches out to friends. And he was so generous in giving of his time to many of, and they have basically abandoned him and us. And this does happen. I don't know, have any of you had that at all?
I think people are afraid.
Yes,
Mostly they do it because they're afraid.
that's
And
a good point.
we just, I think the people who come around are the ones we need around. I don't stress about the people who aren't showing up anymore. Just find the right friends, And no, I'm not having that issue at all.
That's very interesting because I think about who my friends are now
Mhm.
and who my friends were 20 years ago. And I have friends from 50 years ago. I have some really, I'm older and I have those friends. But I have to say that the people that I talk to the most are the people from my PD community because they have been able to nurture me and keep me going. And that's who Sandy wanted to be around.
Mhm.
He was the most comfortable because if he spilled a glass of water or if he tripped and fell down, they didn't go crazy and panic and want to take him directly to the hospital. So I think sometimes we learn from this that finding this level of community is so important for us. Finding the people that you share this commonality of Parkinson's, even if your Parkinson's is totally different, even if the people that you're friends with are 20 years younger, which was certainly our case. You know, we started going to a young onset group, and Sandy was already 62, which is not real old, but I don't always consider that so young at that point. And I think that what it did for us, it allowed us to have uh, this tight relationship with people that understood where we were. And they not only carried Sandy through his life and his journey with PD, but it carried me through. And I think that's what the most important part of it is, that together we kind of go through this experience. And that's sort of what I'm hearing from everyone. Is there anyone that wants to raise a hand? I can't see all of the people on the Zoom, so maybe Kennedy or Sarah can kind of give me a little hint if there's someone that has raised their hand and would like to share. We have a couple minutes here. We can do this.
No one has raised their hand.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Kennedy.
There are some things in the chat if you want to go.
Anything that I missed? Okay, let's see. Someone mentioned the OT Mala from USC Keck has been a lifesaver, and I agree. That was Susie. And they have an OT can be an amazing help for you in navigating your home and being able to work through that. I'd like to just take a moment and have any last minute thoughts from our panel. You've all been so incredible. This has been great. And I hope those of you that are viewing this are also feeling that you've gotten a few little tidbits from it for the evening. We're trying to do this event. We are going to do our care partner caregiving panels quarterly. So you'll have an opportunity to meet other people as well and hear other stories. Edna,
I just want to leave like one word, and the word is jolt, J-O-L-T. It stands for just one little thing. I went to a Davis Finney Victory Summit and a Parkinson Summit, and one of the speakers talked about, whatever your problems are, whatever issue there is, whether you're mad about something or whether something's not working, change one little thing, just one little thing.
I love that.
And I thought it was brilliant. It was just amazing. Like if I can't even think of an example right now, but it's just something that makes you angry or something that somebody did, just change one little thing. And that one little thing just may make a huge difference, just jolt.
It's great. That is so wonderful. It's a little bit of perception, how we do how we perceive things. It's so important. Okay. Anyone else? Cindy, you have a last moment?
The best advice. I feel like I'm the rookie in this group. I'm with these veterans here. So my experience is new, but so hopefully I'm helping someone else who is also in my shoes. But I think the main thing is support and help. And in fact, right before we came here, or no, it's after we had moved here, when I started seeing these new changes in him, I suddenly became aware of the fact that I need to find a caregiver support crew, and I haven't done it yet. I'm in here now, but see, I'm there now. I'm at that stage where I'm ready now to reach out and be a part of a group that's for me once a week or once a month or whatever.
Right.
Reach out and find your community, because it really has made the difference, like night and day with both of us. And
that's so great. Thank you. Steve,
yeah.
Any last final comments?
Caregiving, I guess, was among the toughest things I've ever had to do. I wouldn't do it any other way. It's not conceivable to me, and we're all spouse connected speakers here. It's not conceivable to me that I wouldn't be Barbara's primary caregiver. So with all of the trials and tribulations, and complexities and the heartache, and wasn't anxiety so much as anguish that I was feeling a lot of the time. I was bolstered, supported by the fact that I was doing it. And that made me happy, that I was her caregiver. And I certainly would have had real problems if any other system had come into play, the nursing homes and things that sort, which during COVID were just not thinkable in any event. But that, I reflected on that from time to time. Boy, this is really rough, but I'm the one who's doing it, and I feel good about that.
It is a great thing.
That's so wonderful. Edna, you have anything else? Everybody?
No, just you know, it's a journey, and we're all on this highway, different speeds, different model cars. But
Yeah, that's right.
yeah,
I guess.
but, you know, I have to say, I mean, John's had Parkinson's for so long. And I said, I was 11 when my mom was diagnosed. I don't know anything. I don't even remember not being with it. But I've met the most amazing, wonderful people. Some of them are on this call right now. I've met the most amazing, wonderful people because of Parkinson's. And I think my life is so much richer. And how could that be? But it's so true. It's so true. And I appreciate all of you.
I agree with all of you. Thank you again to our panel, and thank you all for joining us for Let's Talk Parkinson's. We have PCLA Care Partners. PCLA offers care partner support groups. We've started a new support group. We're offering 2 a month now, and we are looking at trying to eventually getting up to every week. So we haven't quite gotten there yet. This is a list of our Care Partner Cafe. We have Care Partner Cafe in the daytime now with Juanita Thompson, who's in LCSW. We have the Caregiver Cafe evening meeting with me. And then our Tuesday evening, 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. That's with adult children of a parent with PD, with Charles Scheel. And I just want to say that that group is amazing. And if you happen to have an adult child that is really struggling, this meeting is amazing. Charles took care of his dad long distance. He's right in there, and he did it all. So he has a wonderful, great toolkit that he can help them with. And I think it's amazing that this group is just happening every week now. We're also excited to announce for you the launch of our new PCLA's Care Partner Support Network, connecting PD care partners to one another for support, guidance, and more. And this is a peer-to-peer program that we are starting, and we have our you can go to bit.ly PCLA Care Partners and see what it's all about. We're very excited about this program and really looking forward to it. So Let's Talk Parkinson's is made possible by, oh wait, I want to go back, Kennedy, I don't want to forget this, is made possible by our sponsors. But first, I want to talk about what's coming up in March. Join us for our upcoming online events. PD and the Gut, dealing with GI issues in Parkinson's with Dr. Wael A.L. Nashef from UCLA. And also, I have Parkinson's. Can I still drive? This is a big question that we talk about all the time. So, and this is with Eric Johnson, a psychologist who was on part of our medical advisory board, and he is amazing. So both of these events will be our March events. So please join us. Now we can go to our sponsors. Let's Talk Parkinson's is made possible by Abbott, AbbVie, Boston Scientific, Medtronic, and by you. Donate today at PCLA.org. Reach out to us at info@PCLA.org, or you can call our hotline, which is 310-880-3143. It's really not a hotline, but it is our information and referral number, and you will speak with Sarah King. By donating, you can join us in our mission to improve the lives of families in our community who are living with Parkinson's. Donate today to help us continue these important programs. PCLA is a nonprofit and all donations are tax deductible. If you enjoyed Let's Talk Parkinson's, please consider donating to PCLA.org to help us continue our work. As always, reach out to us with questions, suggestions, and by info@pcla.org or phone at 310-880-3143. Thank you so much to our wonderful panel. Thank you all for attending, and we hope that you enjoyed the evening.